Have you ever walked through the streets of Paris, feeling both enchanted and completely lost at the same time? This is Wandering Dreamers in Paris, a podcast about the people who came here searching for something and found more than they ever expected. I am your host, Stanzi. Let's begin. Today's guest is a painter whose journey in Paris is as much about art as it is about identity, love, and finding her place between cultures. Through creation and reflection, she's learning what it means to belong or not belong at all. So Liz, thank you very much for having me today at your place here in Paris.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Before we start with the questions, can you present yourself a little bit?
So I'm originally from Marietta, Georgia, which is a town outside of Atlanta. It's in the south, the United States. My family's been in Georgia for many generations. And I always enjoyed art. I, loved drawing when I was a kid. When I was a teenager, I started to judge it really harshly. And I thought, I'm not good enough to be an artist. So I stopped. And when I was 18, I took a painting class with a friend of mine and her uncle who was an artist. And it was the first time I did oils, and I completely fell in love with it. Like just the smell, the touch, everything about it. I made this painting of white roses. My mom loved it. She framed it. She put it in the center of the hall so when people came in, she could show them. It was so sweet. And so I really just kind of told myself at 18, I have found what I want to do. So that was the beginning of really committing to it. And I had the dream of going to New York, as a lot of artists have had. I'm not alone in that. So it took a while, but I finally got to New York and I went to school there, art school, studied with a lot of wonderful artists. Spent 15 years. It was amazing. So I really started my career there. But I had, kind of some desires for a calmer life, a different life, looking for something new, ending a long relationship, wanting to, just start over. And I'd always wanted to live in Europe at some point. So I found myself drawn to France. I have a really good friend who lives here, and she invited me to spend some time with her family. So I spent 3 months in France. And I thought, okay, I can definitely see myself coming here. And it's just such a beautiful place. It inspires me so much. So, of course, I'm sure we'll talk more about that. So I've been in France for 5 years, and it's really changed my work in a beautiful way. And the kind of work I do, it's figurative. I studied kind of an academic approach, very technical. But through the years, my voice has kind of changed to more of a symbolic, mythological approach to my art, more intuitive. Hanging on to some of the tradition and techniques that I learned, but my journey in France has really opened up my creative life, so it's really exciting to see where it's going.
And when your friend invited you here, did she live in Paris or elsewhere?
She lives in Meudon, so it's very close.
Yeah.
And I had visited her years ago when we were teenagers, so I knew that part of Ile-de-France.
Yes.
And very close to Paris. She's married to an American, and so it's a bilingual household. They were very welcoming.
And when was the first time you came to the city, to Paris?
The very first time I came to Paris was in 1998, and it was to visit my friend.
Yes.
And I just fell in love with it. And I traveled a few times to France over the years. I always felt a little bit intimidated by French culture. I was like, the women are so elegant, and it's so beautiful, and people just always know what to say. And I feel like, kind of the awkward American who's too excited about everything. And I told myself, which is so funny, I said, I love France. I love Paris to visit, but I could never live there. Who knew that many years later I would indeed.
And as you're a visual artist, so is there something that really caught your attention?
That's such a good question. Paris has always been on my radar because most of my art heroes at some point from art history, spent time in Paris. So the aesthetic has really always appealed to me, the architecture, just even the details of the elegant way that the table is set, the little cafe, the lighting, the lamppost, even some of the metro signs, this kind of Art Nouveau. I think I've always been attracted to that. And I think what I also really, really love feeling connected to history and things that are really old. So it's just really beautiful to live in a city that is just, filled with stories of other people who've come through here and been inspired and learned. Similar to New York, but New York is much newer.
Yeah, of course.
And it's a different kind of energy. But some of the same reasons that I was attracted to New York, the energy, city of diverse people, there's a lot of that still also in Paris. It's just different. And I think every day when I go outside, I'll see some little, garden or some wrought iron fence, or I don't know, just the Haussmannian buildings, beautiful windows, a very elegantly dressed elderly woman, just all these things, have a croissant. I'm like, it's just, there's so many quintessential things that I just love about being here. And I find my eyes are constantly inspired. Like they're constantly happy to see beautiful things. And I'm so into beauty. Like I built my life around and enjoying, appreciating, creating, and being touched by beauty and sharing it with others. So I think Paris is such a generative city for that.
It's a very beautiful city. All the artists that have been here, and that attracts you also, like being there where they were, doing what they did.
Exactly.
In the same cafe or the same gallery.
Oh, for sure.
Walking a little bit on their shoes, maybe.
Yes, there's Montparnasse is just loaded with places that the artists used to hang out, and there's a school called the Grande Chaumière. And it's an academy that's been around for a really long time, and people like Modigliani and Picasso and Haim Soutine, they all came through there. And unfortunately, they've recently sold the building. But for quite a few years, I was enjoying going there to do figure drawing, and I just was so enchanted to be in a room and thinking, wow, these artists that I love were here doing the same thing I'm doing, figure drawing, for probably years, and the little garden where you could go sit and have a break. It was just really enchanting. The school is still continuing, they've just relocated, but the energy is different, of course. So something like that happens, you just feel connected to the past, and you feel part of a story of being an artist. It just feels, I think it's really important to feel connected. I think the art life, it can be isolating, because you work in your studio by yourself all the time. I'm very blessed with a lovely partner, and I have some really good friends here. But the journey of an artist is often a solo journey, and so it's nice to feel part of that story.
You told me earlier when you got to Paris, your art's changed.
Yeah, I'm really, really sensitive to place. I moved many times. I'm just very sensitive to where I am, what energy I'm feeling, and who I am in that space. And in New York, I was really striving as an art student, trying to make my way, trying to really excel at my craft, to really learn how to understand the human form. I even took human anatomy classes with the cadavers to really understand what's going on underneath the surface, understand the muscles, the bones, the structure. So I spent a lot of years working from life, working from models, and I became really focused on technique, and that was really appreciated where I was in New York. It's a city with many different kinds of art, but the kind of realist scene is popular is not the right word, but it's thriving, I would say. Through that, there was something of a performative element too, because it was, I was kind of going for a certain type of resolution in my work, which was good and interesting until it was not. So I started to kind of deconstruct a little bit about the way I was working, and I was just starting to do that in my last 2 years in New York. And so I was starting on a journey of like, what is it that I'm really about? Like, okay, I can do portraits and I love doing them. I can do figures, I love doing them. But what am I saying? What is touching me? What is the message? What is my goal? What is it that Liz has to offer that only Liz can offer? Because, we all have something special within us. And moving to Paris, I didn't know it would be such a transformative journey I knew it would be an adventure, but it really has changed me artistically, spiritually, aesthetically, relationally. It's just been a really generative journey. Not easy. There have been a lot of struggles, and there continue to be. But it's changed my work of trusting my instincts more and becoming more and more grounded in what I'm saying. My work is very female-centric. It's very feminine. And I just feel like in Paris, I've really been able to lean into that, and that feels more appreciated here. And this is no critique on New York. It's just my experience has been that I've been able to really come into my own here. So my work has become more symbolic, more about trusting my intuition, less about technique, and more about the story that I'm telling. And the palette has really shifted. It's gotten way more vibrant. And pink, which I was just starting to see threads of pink in my work before I moved to France. But pink has become this just dominant force in my work that is very symbolic for my journey as a female artist.
So you also said about living on the side of perfectionism.
Yes, exactly. I think taking that pressure off of a performative element of my artwork. It's an ongoing thing, but it really helps me free myself to be free in the way that I paint. And my technical work that I was doing in New York, I'm proud of it. I think it was part of my journey, but I'm glad that I'm going further and going further into me and what I'm about. And France has really facilitated that for me in a really interesting way.
You also describe yourself a little bit like an outsider.
Yes.
Artist in Paris. What does the feeling really mean to you?
I am learning French. I'm roughly at like B1.2, so pat myself on the back. It's really hard, and it's certainly hard in your 40s to learn a new language when you have no experience. Not speaking French fluently is hard. French people are lovely, but there is a reserve. I think in New York, I just felt like, oh, you're an artist. Whoever's an artist is an artist, and you're in that inner circle because you're an artist. And my art school that I went to, we had people from Japan, from Israel, from Spain, from all over the world. And, all my friends were from all over the world. And here, of course, there is diversity, but it's like you're either French or not French. So it feels a little more divided. I am very aware that I'm an American here.
It's another culture.
Yeah.
Have you had these, like, 2 American moments in France? Like, do you feel like...
I feel, yeah. I mean, I cannot... It's so funny. I really never thought of myself... Of course, I'm American, but I never really felt my Americanness until I moved to France. And my enthusiasm is just, like, absurd here. Like, I remember one day when my boyfriend and I were early dating, and I walked outside and I was like, oh, it's such a beautiful day. And I threw my arms out and I was like smiling and I was like dancing down the street, and he was like, we don't really do that here. And I was like, well, I do. So I have these moments where I'm just like overly enthusiastic, and I'm like just gushing over, every glass of wine, and this is the best wine, this is the best meal. I'm sure the servers here, at restaurants think I'm like not even sincere, but I am. That makes me feel like very American. But there's also another thing that I really appreciate about my Americanism, if we're on the topic. I think Americans are very entrepreneurial, like we're very innovative. And I didn't realize how much that's in me. French culture is more structured and more regulated. Like you kind of choose your business activity and you've got your box, and that's the one you stay in. And the self-employed thing is already stretching it. I've liked seeing how I can bring my American innovativeness to the challenge of being a foreigner in a new country for me. And starting a new business here. Certainly during a pandemic, all of this was a big challenge, continues to be, but I think that American spirit helps me.
So you came here just right after the pandemic.
It was quite a lot, to be honest. So I arrived in September. I had been I won't say stuck, because it ended up being a really beautiful time with my sister and my mom, but I was in Georgia. I left New York in December 2019 to go home for Christmas in Georgia. And I stayed for 9 months, not expecting that while I was waiting for my visa. When I got to France in September, it was this narrow window when they opened the borders, and then they closed them very quickly. And there was another lockdown. But I was still allowed to go to my studio. I was working at a community. We'd have to have the attestation to go out.
Yes.
And we'd go in, and they would lock the door behind us. And, you could only exit during the lunch hour or, at the end of the day. So it actually was really stressful. I've never been locked in a building.
Of course.
And that was kind of crazy to be locked in there. But, I was actually thankful that I had that space because most people couldn't really go anywhere. I had my little bubble, you would say, with the artist that I was working with. So that was really nice. But it was, it was a scary time. There was, we had to go through the vaccines and how to get your vaccine. And I didn't have my carte vitale yet. And all the headache of
bureaucracy in France.
Yes, the bureaucracy is insane here. Yeah. I mean, I appreciate a lot of it, of course, the intent. But it's really, really complicated. And so I was going through all that, plus all the protocol with COVID. And then there was the curfew at 6 p.m., if you remember. Oh, that was so difficult, especially in the spring when,
you want to go out.
You want to go outside, and you're like, I was living in this tiny little apartment in the 10th. It's like 14 meters square. And, just sitting there, from 6 p.m. on, it was just crazy. And also, there's something interesting about starting a journey in a new country in a really challenging time because that was my baseline. Yeah. And so it's kind of uphill from there.
True. That's true. And maybe also everybody was living the same thing as you were.
The playing field was level. Yeah. And, also because it was a global experience, there was solidarity, which is such a French trait and word I love. So, yeah, that was kind of scary, but also beautiful.
You showed me your artwork just before. I saw a lot of girls and boys singing with their mouth open, like saying something.
Yes. It is true. I was, starting in 2018, I was doing a lot of singers, mouths open, and even in some of my other series, I, we have a large mouth painting near us, and, sometimes I do candies and mouths. I do think I'm doing less of that right now, and I think it might speak to the interior life that I'm cultivating. And I think that's also part of my French journey because being an outsider and learning a new language, there's something that has made me turn inward to be really rooted in my inner dialogue. While I adore learning the language, and my boyfriend is wonderful at patiently speaking slowly and repeating and understanding my crazy grammar. So I do love learning it, but I also realize that I'm a quieter person here. And I'm not the same person I was in the US. I mean, I'm still me, but I'm growing in this direction that's becoming a little more interior. And I like that. Sometimes it can feel a little lonely when I just want to hear some English, or I just want to talk in English. I just want it to be easy. But, I'm proud of myself for pushing. And I'm proud that I'm an American who's here and learning French versus, sorry to say, there are a lot of Americans who come here and don't really work very hard on their French. That's a shame. They should change that.
What part of the United States, maybe, do you carry with you?
I feel more in touch with my roots, my southern roots, because I think they're in the South, in the U.S., it's a very polite culture, and there's a lot of civility and, a lot of time for meals and, loved ones. New York was very different, but I think that kind of civility and politeness and gentility is really reflected in French culture. So that really calls back my roots. So I feel kind of interestingly that this, being in France is having me connect more to where I come from. I also, in my distant, like way long time ago, I had French ancestors. So I like to think that they called me back. So, and then as far as like New York challenged me so much, and showed me what I was capable of achieving if I, put my heart into it. And so there's this energy in New York that's very, very generative. Also exhausting and maybe not what I wanted forever, but it was beautiful. And I think that energy of the challenges of living in New York, because it's a hard city, it's a competitive city, it's an expensive city, it's a 24-hour city, it's a loud city, it's just everything. And I think that set me up to actually be very adaptable to move to a new country. So I would say, both.
If you make it in New York, you make it anywhere.
Yes, I do tell myself that on days where I'm struggling. I say, but I made it in New York. That means I can do this. Because we're talking about this expat stuff. Being an expat makes you very reflective. You're constantly comparing old lives to current life.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very interesting. So.
Have there been moments where you felt unseen or misunderstood in the Paris art world?
I think something that's been hard for me is, and this is going from my experience in New York, I felt like artists really banded together to make things happen. And, we put on art shows, we got in touch with galleries, we were all looking out for each other. Like if you had a contact, you were going to share it. If you were doing an exhibition, you tried to get your friends into it. So there was a lot of sense of like, we're in this together. And this may be because I'm not French, but I don't feel that here. I kind of feel like you're on your own. And at first, I think there was I had this idea that I would just take my way of being from New York and I would just insert that into France and my life would kind of continue to be the same. And of course it's not like that ever. I mean, that's crazy. So I think I've had to let go of things that I really loved about the New York community that I had and try to embrace what's here for me now. And it's less friends, which is okay, because I'm also in the stage of my life where I don't need to have like 20 friends every time I'm doing something. So it's actually nice. The few artists that I do connect with, we have, we can paint together, we can draw together, we can enjoy talking about art together. It's really lovely and very enriching.
So about your relationship, you're with a French person.
Yeah.
So I guess he has acted maybe as a bridge between cultures.
I feel like he's taught me a lot about understanding. I think sometimes when the unknown is just frustrating, but he's helping me understand, like, okay, for example, bureaucracy can be crazy making. But then he kind of helps me unpack, like, you have to pay these contributions because you're also supporting other people who are doing what you're doing. He puts it in this context and he somehow is able to give me insight onto not just it's different, but why and why France is the way that it is. And it's making me actually really, really appreciate this country. Of course, I can be frustrated sometimes too, but I also really appreciate the way France operates and the differences. Being with him has been great. We've been together for 3 years. I mean, it's helped my language, it's helped my patience. I feel like one thing you have to cultivate with French bureaucracy, there's a sense of patience and, taking your time. He's really completely changed the way that I take my meals. For example, in New York, you just grab a sandwich for lunch on the go and God forbid, sometimes you have to eat on the subway. This just does not happen here. And so lunch is, a ritual. It's like, you got to have a really proper, warm, prepared, cooked meal, nothing that you're heating up. And then you got to have your coffee, and then you got to have your something sweet to end on. And, this needs to be at least an hour and 15 minutes, probably an hour and a half. So these kinds of things that he's showing me that's like normal for French is really beautiful. I'm really loving that. So I do feel like he is, like you said, a bridge to kind of understanding the culture. And I do love the culture. Sometimes I don't understand it. Sometimes I'm frustrated by it, but the more I learn French and the more I can interact with French people and get to know them, I really, I'm really attracted to
You may be coming also to your ancestral
roots.
So
Yes. I think there's a lot that resonates. It's very funny. My boyfriend has this thing that he says a lot. He's like, you're more French than the French. And he says that because I really deeply appreciate French things and I get so excited.
Did you have some of that appreciation before coming here?
I'd had this friend from when I was a teenager and we'd stayed in touch. She was kind of like a second sister. I had this connection with her, and I remember as a teenager just idolizing her, with this beautiful Parisian woman with dark hair and, different perfumes for different seasons and cashmere sweaters, and she just was like the epitome of elegance. So I had this like appreciation of all things French from teenage on, and that lingered, of course. And in New York, people love French cheese, French wine. There's a real connection between Paris and New York.
Of course.
So there's quite a French presence there. Not that I was like heavily involved in that, but
it has also inspired your work, where you used to do this candy, American candy.
Yes.
And now you have this French pastry on your painting.
Exactly. So I had, we had discussed it before, but I had started a series during COVID when I was staying with my sister. Had nothing to do but paint. I was getting unemployment. I was like, this is great. I'm getting a salary for the first time in my life just to do what I love. And I started to turn towards things that were nostalgic, and I was painting candies and cookies, Oreos and Skittles and all these things from my childhood, and people were really enjoying it. So I decided when I moved to France to keep the series going, but to switch to French candies, and then of course French pastries, macarons, religious, all these different pastries that are lovely to paint. So yeah, that's been a lovely part of my art journey for the last 5 years.
Yes, because you say you also always get inspired by where you are. And now you're working a little bit more with mythology.
As we've been talking about like how France has changed me, and how I've kind of been having more of an interior dialogue and feeling a little bit like not an outsider, but a quieter person, sometimes an outsider. But, I've really become very reflective. Again, this is also part of my, age. When you kind of get in midlife, I think you turn inward a bit. So I'm really enjoying this dialogue that I'm having with my unconscious through dreams. I'm doing a lot of depth psychology work, and studying Jungian dream analysis. There's a great program. I'm going to do a shout out to this Jungian Life Dream School. Google it. I've always been interested in mythology, but through this work about the unconscious, it's really, really coming out of my work. It's been brewing, I should say, for quite a few years. I've been interested in sculptures and legends and, kind of these ancient stories. But now I'm realizing there's a huge reservoir within me of these things that come in my dreams and in my intuition. And they're all just kind of waiting to be expressed. So I have this whole cast of characters and paintings that are within that, will be manifested.
Do you think, as Jung said, you're maybe trying to look for your own mythology?
Yes, I love that. That's a beautiful way to put it. It really, because it's understanding, or deeper understanding of self, like true self, essence. And it is, it would be my own mythology. And through that, it also I realized like the connection, like the connectedness in the world. Like when you start to really look at mythologies and compare, Egyptian mythology to Greek mythology to Christian tradition, you just start to see all these connections. And so you find your place within that, but you also realize you're, there's something much bigger. Part of something.
You rewrite your mythology.
You're referring to the painting I did. That's a retelling of Leda and the Swan. Leda and the Swan, Greek mythology, where Zeus is trying to seduce Leda, beautiful Leda, and he transforms into a swan so he can attack her. And I really wanted to do a retelling of that and make it where there's a union between the feminine Leda and the masculine. I wanted it to feel like she wasn't overtaken, but it was, they were equals, joining. And so in my version, Leda's on top and the swan is kind of merging with her. She's in the power seat. She's got her hand around the neck. She's got her legs across the wings. It's very it's a new way of telling it, and for me that's my myth. This is my version.
That's how it should happen.
That's how it should happen. None of this non-consensual craziness.
So for the other artists listening who dream of moving abroad, what would you tell them?
If possible, one thing that really helped me was to spend some time here before I made the leap. And so depending on where you're coming from, a lot of times you can spend up to 90 days in France without a visa. So that's a great place to start. I know that maybe not is maybe not possible for everyone, but it's a really good place to start, where you can kind of immerse yourself, make sure it resonates for you. Of course, you can't know everything in 3 months, but you can get a feel, even if it's not 3 months, even if it's a month or a few weeks. But I would say, do your research. Like, there's going to be a lot of unknowns, so it's good to, try to figure out as much as you can. And I don't say that with any stress, but there are things I wish I had known. Like, I didn't know anything about having to pay, our self-cotizations. Nobody told me, it's like, what is this bill for, $3,000? Like, nobody told me about this.
Of course.
So yeah, educate yourself, but also have an open mind, because I think wherever you go, that when you get outside of your comfort zone, you're going to be changed. And that's really beautiful. So it can be a really transformative journey. So I would say, if you come here, or if you're here, dear artists, lean into what France has to offer to teach you. Like, lean into the differences of the culture, the beauty here. It's hard to be an expat. It's hard to make a big life change. It's hard to not know the language fluently. But this is a very generative place. Like, there's so much beauty. Don't forget to just go to the Musée d'Orsay. Don't forget to watch the sunset on the Seine. Just really soak it in and let it nourish you.
If your life in Paris was a painting, what would the dominant color be right now?
I have to say pink.
Yeah.
It's become a color that is so symbolic for me, of presence, of femininity, of strength, of intuition. I think that would be my
Your
go-to.
Paris color.
My Paris color, exactly. Paris pink.
Thank you very much. I love to hear your story. I'm sure a lot of people will love to hear it too.
Oh, thank you.
We'll see you soon.
Okay, thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Paris is not always what we imagine. But maybe that's exactly where the magic begins. Thank you for listening to Wandering Dreamers in Paris. If this story resonated with you, share it with someone who might need to hear it. And wherever you are in your journey, keep wandering, keep dreaming.